Right now, the air trapped beneath your roof is likely pushing 150 degrees, baking your ceiling joists and pulling hundreds of extra dollars out of your wallet every summer. The modern construction industry built your home to trap this heat intentionally, guaranteeing a lifetime of stressed air conditioners and failing shingles. A 200-year-old Amish building principle eliminates this thermal dead zone completely, and it costs exactly $4 to implement. My name is Noah Miller. For 30 years, I poured thousands of dollars into blown-in insulation, power vents, and ridge baffles, only to watch my upstairs bedrooms stay suffocatingly hot. You experience blistering upper floors, sweating ductwork, and endless cooling cycles. Is this just how it is now? The answer involves a forgotten technique that forces the structure to breathe on its own using basic physics. You hear constant pitches for complex HVAC upgrades and chemical foam sprays. The corporate cartels rely on those upgrades for their profit margin. The real solution requires a single piece of hardware you already walk past in the store every week. That is the part the industry needs you to never find out. Think of your attic like a dark car parked on asphalt in mid-July. When you crack the windows on both sides, the cross breeze pulls the heat out naturally. Modern building codes sealed that car perfectly tight, added layers of synthetic foam, and punched a tiny motorized fan in the roof. The heat builds up, overwhelms the fan, and radiates straight down into your living space. You feel it as a wall of heat the moment you walk up the stairs. You see it in your cooling bill every month. The industry sells you thicker insulation to hide the heat. The product treats the symptom, leaving the condition that creates the symptom completely unchanged. Most contractors will tell you passive cooling is impossible. They are simply repeating what they were taught. A 2018 study in the Journal of Building Engineering confirmed that passive stack ventilation reduces peak attic temperatures by up to 40% using zero moving parts. Basic thermal physics dictates that hot air expands and seeks an exit. Traditional builders gave that air a massive, unobstructed path to leave. Modern regulators erased that path. They replaced it with tiny plastic vents that choke the airflow. The stifled air stagnates, cooks your wooden trusses, and turns your entire roof into a giant radiator pointing down at your bedroom. The Amish understood this dynamic perfectly. They built barns and homes that vent massive heat loads silently, using only the natural buoyancy of hot air. The Amish call it the way things should always have been done. Your motorized attic fans are fighting a losing battle against simple physics. The fan pulls a vacuum, sucking conditioned air right out of your house through the ceiling fixtures. You end up paying to air condition your attic. The heavy insulation acts like a sponge, soaking up the heat all day and releasing it into your rooms all night. You run the AC constantly to fight the heat radiating from your own ceiling. I thought I understood why this airflow worked. Then I took a closer look at how thermal density behaves in completely enclosed residential spaces, and I realized I had only seen half of it. The industry buried this out of pure financial self-interest. A one-time $4 fix produces zero recurring revenue. The modern housing sector depends heavily on a constant cycle of mechanical failures and energy consumption. A house that cools itself naturally offers zero profit margin for the manufacturers of power vents, spray foam, and massive air conditioning units. It is purely a business model. I discovered this reality standing inside a massive dairy barn in Holmes County, Ohio. The outside temperature measured 95 degrees. Inside that barn, the air felt crisp, moving constantly upward entirely on its own. I looked up at the roof structure and saw the precise configuration the builder used to manipulate the air pressure. I checked the historical building records, and this exact principle was standard practice across America before the electric fan existed. Everything I told you so far is true. There is a second layer to this discovery, one that makes the whole thing twice as powerful. Have you ever noticed your upstairs hallway feeling 10 degrees hotter than your living room the moment the sun hits the roof? Does your house do this thing where the air conditioner runs for 3 hours straight while the bedrooms stay uncomfortably warm? Have you ever noticed a faint baked wood smell seeping out of your recessed ceiling lights on a hot August afternoon? If you said yes to even one of those, stay exactly where you are. Your house is showing you the exact symptoms of thermal stagnation. The trapped heat is actively degrading your roof shingles and baking the moisture right out of your structural lumber. The structural damage happens quietly, hidden behind layers of fiberglass and drywall. You feel the financial drain every time you open your utility bill. In a few minutes, I'm going to tell you about something that costs about the same as a cup of coffee at a gas station. Most people ignore it completely. It is the piece that makes everything else in this method work. You are told to seal your attic tighter and add thicker layers of insulation. The insulation companies want you trapped in a recurring payment cycle of higher energy bills and specialized remediation services. The solution requires stepping outside that corporate matrix and trusting the physics of natural ventilation. The air wants to move. You simply need to give it the correct path using the forgotten technique the Amish perfected. I'm going to tell you the price in a moment, and I want you to think about what you have already spent. Up until now, I have been talking about identifying the trapped heat. What I am about to describe is the exact protocol to fix it permanently. The answer is going to sound too simple to work. Keep listening. Quick break. If you're tired of being fleeced, hit like and subscribe. We're exposing the truth. I stood in that Holmes County dairy barn staring at the roofline, feeling that 95-degree heat outside turn into a crisp, steady updraft inside. The thermometer I brought read a full 30 degrees cooler at the peak than my own heavily insulated attic back home. Seeing that massive thermal load move silently through a simple open channel proved my expensive power vents were actively fighting the natural physics of the structure. That realization changed everything I understood about my own house. Modern building codes and corporate efficiency standards prevent simple, natural solutions, forcing you into expensive, energy-intensive alternatives. This represents a carefully constructed system. You have been sold a lie. What if the solution to your boiling attic was literally staring you in the face, hidden in plain sight by those who profit from your discomfort? This is where we peel back the curtain. Share this video if you believe in common sense over corporate greed. Have you ever noticed a distinct, heavy smell of baked pine the second you pull down your attic stairs in late July? Does your house do this thing where the upstairs drywall feels physically warm to the touch by 4 in the afternoon? Have you ever noticed the shingles on the south-facing side of your roof curling up at the edges 5 years before the warranty expires? If you said yes to even one of those, do not go anywhere. Your home is actively suffocating under the very materials designed to protect it. The insulation industry convinced you to bury your eaves in fiberglass, choking off the only natural breathing mechanism your house possesses. In a few minutes, I am going to tell you about something that costs about the same as a cup of coffee. Most people throw it away or never buy it at all. It is the piece that makes everything else work. I will tell you what it is shortly. The heat building up above your ceiling is not an accident of nature. It is a mathematical certainty created by modern building codes that prioritize a sealed envelope over natural thermal dynamics. They want you trapped in a cycle of buying expensive cooling equipment to fight a problem they engineered into your floor plan. That is exactly what they want you to believe. The truth is hiding right above your ceiling, waiting for you to simply move a few inches of material out of the way. I tried explaining this to a man who had already spent a small fortune fighting the heat, and his reaction told me everything about how deep this conditioning goes. Marcus Thorne is 61 years old, living in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. When I pulled into his driveway, he was standing next to his massive air conditioning compressor, holding a dripping condensation line with a look of pure exhaustion on his face. The air smelled like hot asphalt, and the heat radiating off his brick siding hit me from 20 feet away. Marcus had spent $4,200 on new, blown-in fiberglass insulation just 2 summers ago. He paid another $800 to have a contractor cut holes in his roof and install 2 motorized exhaust fans. That is $5,000 handed over to the industry, and his house was still baking. For 48 months, his 400-square-foot master bedroom hit 82 degrees every single evening. He ran 2 portable box fans just to fall asleep. The corporate solutions had drained his bank account and left him completely miserable. When I told him we could fix it for less than $5 using a piece of wire mesh, he did not smile. He looked at me like I had suggested cooling his house with a block of ice. He dropped the plastic pipe, wiped his hands on his jeans, and stared up at his roofline for a long time without saying a word. He was days away from making a $9,000 mistake. A local HVAC company had quoted him that exact amount for a completely new 5-ton cooling system. He had the loan paperwork sitting on his kitchen counter, ready to sign. The contractor was not lying to him, he just did not know any better. They are trained to solve heat with horsepower, never with physics. I asked Marcus to give me one Saturday morning before he signed his life away to a high-interest home improvement loan. He crossed his arms tightly against his chest and shook his head, pointing at the expensive motorized vents spinning uselessly on his roof. He told me he was tired of trying cheap tricks and wanted a real professional fix. That is the exact mindset the industry relies on to keep their revenue flowing. I told him the Amish did not use air conditioners, yet their massive dairy barns stayed 30 degrees cooler than his modern bedroom. He finally agreed to try it, mostly just to prove me wrong. But what we found when we pulled back his insulation changed his mind before we even installed the wire. But how could something so simple, so cheap, possibly outperform thousands of dollars of modern technology? The answer is pure, forgotten science. What is this $4 Amish secret? It is a simple roll of 1/4-inch galvanized hardware cloth, cut and bent into a rigid structural baffle that forces your roof to breathe. Think of your attic like a massive brick chimney above a fireplace. If you pack the bottom of that chimney tightly with steel wool, the smoke chokes, backs up, and fills your living room. Modern contractors pack the bottom edges of your roof, called the soffits, completely tight with fiberglass insulation. They choke the chimney, forcing the heat to back up and bake your living space. The Amish secret forces those bottom edges permanently wide open, letting the heat rush out the top peak like a perfectly drafted fire. To do this, you need to go to your local farm supply or hardware store and buy a small roll of 1/4-inch galvanized hardware cloth. It costs about $4 for a short roll. You will also need a pair of basic tin snips. This brings us to the item that costs the same as a cup of coffee. You need one heavy-duty 3mm contractor garbage bag. Most homeowners try to move old insulation with their bare hands or a flimsy kitchen bag, kicking up a massive cloud of toxic fiberglass dust that forces them to abandon the project. The heavy-duty contractor bag allows you to firmly press the insulation back without tearing, keeping the air clean and making the job incredibly fast. Now, take your tin snips and cut the hardware cloth into rectangles measuring exactly 24 inches long by 10 inches wide. Fold each rectangle down the middle lengthwise to create a rigid metal V-shape. Go up into your attic and locate the edges where the roof slopes down to meet the floor. Use your contractor bag to push the fluffy insulation back exactly 2 feet from the absolute edge of the roofline. Not 3 feet, not 1 foot, but exactly 2 feet. The depth matters because it creates the precise pressure differential needed to trigger the Bernoulli principle, where fast-moving outside air creates a vacuum that sucks the stagnant heat out. Once the insulation is pushed back, wedge your metal V-shape between the wooden roof deck and the ceiling joists. The rigid metal holds the heavy insulation back permanently, creating a massive, unobstructed air channel that plastic store-bought baffles simply cannot maintain. Plastic baffles crush under the weight of modern insulation, which is exactly why the industry loves selling them. The galvanized wire never crushes, never rots, and stays completely rigid for decades. Some people worry that opening the eaves will let bugs or rodents inside. The 1/4-inch mesh size is specifically chosen because it physically blocks wasps, mice, and bats while letting maximum airflow pass through unhindered. Others worry about losing heat in the winter. This airflow only washes over the cold side of the roof deck, which actually prevents condensation and stops destructive ice dams from forming when the snow falls. Most homeowners skip this step entirely, trusting the plastic junk sold at the big box stores. That is exactly why they fail and end up calling the HVAC salesman. We finished Marcus's entire attic in exactly 3 hours, and when the sun came up the next day, the house reacted in a way neither of us expected. The very next month, Marcus dropped his electric bill by $85. His 400 square foot master bedroom stayed at a crisp, completely comfortable 71 degrees during the hottest week of August. He climbed up on his roof, unplugged the 2 expensive motorized vents, and threw them in the trash. 48 months of absolute misery and financial drain ended in one single afternoon. His brother-in-law, a licensed general contractor, came over for a barbecue 2 weeks later. He walked upstairs, felt the cool air hitting his face, and immediately demanded to know what brand of air conditioning unit Marcus had bought. Marcus just smiled, looked at him, and delivered the line I will never forget. He said, "I canceled the $9,000 loan and took my wife out for steak." That one simple change triggered a massive chain reaction throughout the entire structure of his home. First, the massive new airflow cooled the wooden roof deck, which stopped the asphalt shingles from baking and degrading in the sun. Second, the cooler attic took the massive thermal load off his existing AC unit, allowing it to easily drop the humidity levels downstairs. Third, that reduced humidity stopped his metal ductwork from sweating inside the walls. Finally, the musty, baked pine smell in the upstairs hallway vanished completely, leaving the house smelling fresh and clean. This isn't magic, it's physics. But understanding the mechanism is only half the battle. The real question is, why did they want you to forget it? The answer to that question is hiding in a patent filed over 60 years ago, and I had to read it 3 times before I believed it. Still with us? Good. Because what you're about to learn could change how you see your home forever. When Marcus confirmed his upstairs bedroom was holding steady at 71 degrees, my lingering doubts gave way to the heavy realization of the thousands of dollars I had personally wasted on complicated machinery. I saw exactly how this simple metal mesh outperforms modern tech by creating a permanent, uncrushable airway that leverages the immense natural power of rising heat. The proof is in the physics. So, if this solution is so effective, why isn't it standard? The answer points to a much darker truth about who controls our homes. Prepare yourself. This part might make you angry, but it's crucial to understanding your power. The suppression of passive stack ventilation was not an accident, and it was not a natural evolution of building science. In the late 1970s, during the energy crisis, the massive fiberglass insulation manufacturers and the emerging HVAC lobby heavily influenced the new national building codes. They pushed a doctrine of the perfectly sealed envelope, convincing regulators that homes needed to be choked completely tight to save energy. By mandating that the eaves be stuffed full of synthetic insulation, they legally mandated the use of their mechanical products to move the stagnant air. They quietly criminalized the traditional, open-breathing structures that the Amish and early American builders relied on for centuries. They actively worked to bury this knowledge. But now that you know, what can you do to reclaim your home from their grip? You start by looking up at your own ceiling. Think back to that dark car parked on the asphalt in mid-July that we talked about earlier. For decades, you were told the only way to cool that car was to keep the windows rolled up tight and pay thousands of dollars for a stronger, louder air conditioner. That 150-degree heat baking your roof joists was never a structural inevitability. It was a manufactured condition designed specifically to keep you on a permanent subscription plan with the utility company and the HVAC repairman. Today, Marcus Thorne's upstairs hallway is completely quiet. The expensive, motorized vents are sitting in a local landfill, and the drywall outside his bedroom is cool to the touch at 4 in the afternoon. The power company is not getting his extra $85 this month, and the contractor lost out on a $9,000 installation. Marcus is no longer part of that multi-billion-dollar revenue stream. This was never about a hot attic. It was about what was taken from you and how simple it is to take it back. I want you to go down to the comments right now and tell me the specific room or the exact structural problem in your house that you have been fighting the longest. I am not asking to satisfy a computer algorithm. I read them because the exact problems you leave there determine which corporate myth we dismantle in the next video. That blistering heat trapped beneath your roof is no longer a mandatory tax on your comfort. It is simply air waiting to be released. A $4 piece of wire forces the structure to breathe on its own. This is your moment to break free. Don't let them win. I held back one detail from Marcus. When I first climbed into my own attic with that roll of wire, I felt completely foolish, trusting a piece of farm fencing over a certified HVAC contractor. I am sharing this with you today because I recognize the heavy burden of standing in a sweltering house and choosing to walk away from the accepted professional answers. You now possess the knowledge to cool your home naturally, cheaply, and permanently. The only question is, are you ready to build your own $4 solution and declare independence from their system? Click here for the step-by-step guide.